Having followers is not the same thing as having customers. So if you ever felt that gap, this is the episode for you.
So it's more important to have 1,000 followers who know you as an author than it is to have 10,000 followers who just know you because of a viral post.
My today's guest is Con Carter. He's a published author, a creative who's being paid for his craft in the real world, published books, films, and writings.
Most celebrities, and this is like a super fact, when I say most, I mean like 90% of celebrities who sign book deals or influencers who sign book deals don't sell a lot of books.
The whole point of this conversation is to break down what makes people pay, using real world examples from his world and pulling it together to make it like a framework that you can use. So let's get into it.
This is for you.
What's this?
Yeah, you can really. Yeah, absolutely. I don't know if you understand what writing. I could. In your experience, what have you seen? Creators or writers with followers who cannot sell, or creators or writers with no followers can still make money?
That's actually a really good question. I've seen both though. I don't know which one's more prevalent. I've seen creators. It's so interesting you ask that because there's an article I read earlier today about creators who have less than 5,000 followers but making $500,000.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I think for me it's both circumstances present different challenges because in this era we think attention or followers equals money, you know, and that there's a natural path to that. But unless you actually have structure, like the structure in place to monetize your followers, then followers does not automatically equal money. Another thing is it depends on what you want to do and what you're willing to do. If I'll speak for writers specifically, if you're a writer and you have 1,000 followers or 1,000 subscribers on some platform, if you're willing to monetize those followers or those subscribers through different services, then you can make hundreds of thousands of dollars. You know, if you're willing to do offer editing service, if you're willing to do ghostwriting, if you're willing to do online courses or whatever, you know, like if you have a structure in place to monetize those followers, then not that it doesn't matter, but it's less important how many followers you have and more important about the structure that you have behind it. At the same time, though, if you have 1 million followers, that's 1 million more opportunities for you to actually do something. And, you know, like and maybe you don't need to offer services and you could find a way with those 1 million followers to just monetize the attention on its own. So whether that's through a paid subscription, whether that's through selling the thing that you actually create, so selling a book, right? So you don't have to do it, offer any services. You already have the product, which is the book, and you offer that for sale. Then you're okay. So, yeah, I've seen both in both circumstances. I'm not sure which one's more prevalent, but both are.
You touched on the point of system. So can you talk a little bit about it? Like what systems have you seen working, if we can break that down?
Yeah, for creative people and very specifically writing, I think it's a matter of two things. It's either you're offering products or services, or you are the rare creator. This is actually much more rare. The rare creator who can just create the thing that they are creating, meaning they're creating the book, they have the book, they get the attention, and the only thing that they sell is that book. You know, that's rare. What's much more frequent or much more normal in the creative world is you get the attention and then you offer something with that attention. You know, you offer the services with that attention, and that's how most creators make money. It comes from a variety of income sources and a variety of revenue sources that you actually accrue through whatever system that you want. So, if it's, let's say, Substack, right? Let's use that as a very specific example.
Yeah.
You have a Substack. You're writing on Substack. You put out a post every week. That post generates interest and attention. You use that interest and attention to drive readers or subscribers to a service that you offer. So editing, ghostwriting, etc. That's one revenue model. Then you say, or revenue stream, I should say. Then you say, okay, well, I'm driving them to that service, which is the editing, ghostwriting. But then I'm also going to have a paid version of my subscription, which gives you information that you can't get on the free version. Some people pay for that. That's a second revenue stream. Then, like then you could just kind of go down the line like that, right? Like, and then just create those revenue streams. Now you have two different revenue streams off of creating just one newsletter. So again, it depends on, what you're willing to do, what services you're good at. First of all, you have to be good at these things. And then again, like how good you are at creating these systems, these funnels for people to go through and understanding conversion. You know what I mean? Like all these entrepreneurial things that sometimes creative people might struggle with.
And you mentioned, or you touched awareness. I would say like awareness is cheap and commitment is expensive. Is that true? What do you believe?
Awareness is cheap and commitment is expensive. Yes, absolutely. I think creators overestimate awareness. You know what I mean? I feel like they overestimate how valuable awareness is. I think what is most important is having the right people, the right audience interested in the thing that you do the most and the thing that you want to do the most. So it's more important to have 1,000 followers who know you as an author than it is to have 10,000 followers who just know you because of a viral post. You know what I mean? Because those 1,000 people who know you as an author know what they're getting into. It's the same problem. It's like the celebrity book problem. So what I mean is like a celebrity will sign a book deal. A publisher will sign a celebrity because they're like, well, you have 10 million followers, or they'll sign an influencer. You have 10 million followers. If I could convert a percentage of those followers, 2%, 3%, then we'll sell tens of thousands, maybe hundreds of thousands of books, right? That's a math that they do in their head, but they don't do the deep math. They don't recognize that just because this person has 10 million followers, will those followers be readers? They don't think about that. Just because they have 10 million followers, what do they have 10 million followers for? What are they known for? Right? Is that audience even into reading literature? Right? So there are so many things that you have to consider when you just cast awareness, because awareness doesn't sell books. Most celebrities, and this is like a super fact. When I say most, I mean like 90% of celebrities who sign book deals or influencers who sign book deals don't sell a lot of books because their audience is just not, that's not how they structure, they kind of nurture their audience. They nurture their audience for whatever thing is that they're doing online, not necessarily to sell books. So awareness is important for sure. Like, I don't want to downplay it. You do need people to be aware of who you are, but you need them to be, first of all, you need a specific person to be aware of who you are, or specific people to be aware of who you are. And then you also need to know, like, more specifically, what do they know you for? You know what I mean? Like that is also important, which I guess is a more of a branding conversation than any.
Do you think, like, is there a number of followers that automatically triggers conversions, or is it never a case?
Never. No, I know there's a magazine, a Canadian magazine called Uppercase Magazine. She has at her peak, so the highest, she had, the person who runs it had 8,000 paid subscribers. 8,000, right? That's like negligible in the grand scheme of things. That's like a very small number of subscribers, but that's 8,000 people who pay about $90 a year for a subscription print magazine that they get 4 times a year. So they get it quarterly. So if you do the math on $90 times 8,000 subscribers, she's making a living. Right. And she's making a fairly decent living, fairly good living, to be honest, based on those numbers. And I could almost guarantee you that most people listening to this have never heard of Uppercase Magazine. Her awareness is super low. Like, she Uppercase is based in Alberta, right? And it's a print magazine, right? That talks about craft. Super low awareness. So the number is not as important again as the what we spoke about before, the specificity of everything.
Do you have any example where even low amount of followers converted well? Like any example, like the one that you gave me.
Mm.
I don't know the number of followers,
Mm.
not specifically followers, like how many people knew her magazine or something like it. But in terms of like any example where you have actually seen smaller amount of followers, but still the conversion was high, or people were still buying the books, or whatever the case is.
I knew somebody who had about 3,000. So no social media following. I'll give you two examples. Someone who had pretty much no social media following. This is an author. Someone who wanted to write a book. They wrote a book. They had pretty much no social media following. And initially they're like, you know what? I need a social media following. So let me go on TikTok. Let me go on Instagram. And they tried that. And it just wasn't for them. It wasn't working for them. So what they did instead was say, okay, they partnered with they actually got a marketing person to help them out. And this marketing person said, you know what? Forget social media. Your book is very specific. I forgot what the book was about, but your book is targeted to a very specific audience. Why don't we just go on podcasts who speak to that audience and let's see what happens? So they booked 2 podcasts a week or something like that, or maybe 6 podcasts in a month, let's just say. And they did that for 3 months. He wanted to do 6 podcasts per month, and his book sales took off, right? In 3 months, like because he would go on the podcast. He's speaking directly to the audience who wants his book. Who cares if he has a social media following? They don't care. They need the book, right? Boom. So he did extremely well. Another author had 5,000 free subscribers. So not paying subscribers, 5,000 free subscribers, had a book coming out. Again, no social media following, but when the pre-sale started, he sent it out to his newsletter followers, 5,000 of them, and was able to sell, I think over 1,000 books just off of his newsletter subscribers. Right? So those are just like simple examples of not having any major social media following at all, but being able to understand audience, understand building community, and really just like how to nurture and give the community that you actually build what they want, or just like get into the spaces of where those community members already are. So you're not even building the community yourself. You're going to the spaces where the communities are in the case of the podcast, right? And then speaking to them and offering something that you know they're going to want.
What do you think? What would have made it work? Like why the followers, even though free subscribers, even though newsletter subscribers, or the people who were listening to those podcasts, like what do you think? What would have happened that made that conversion? Was that relatability with the audience, or something else that you think?
No, you nailed it. It's relatability first of all. With the podcast, it's a need situation. The author was speaking to something that the audience needed and wanted, and he gave it to them. He was speaking the same language they were speaking. In the case of the person who had 5,000 free subscribers, he had built a community, and what we were talking about earlier, a very specific community who knew him for being an author, who knew him for writing. So when he put out a book, they were excited about it, and they were able to buy it at a high level, at a high number. So yeah, it's those things, you know.
But there are multiple reasons, or like I don't know the number of following that you have in terms of like different areas that you cater, whether that's a newsletter, in person, or other areas. I want to know, like, there is a specific pattern that I've seen, including myself. When we like something, we still don't buy it. Like for some reason, we have the money, we like the product, but we still don't buy it. What do you think, like, why that happens? And I think it comes in books. It specifically happens. I think so. Maybe I'm wrong.
That's a good question. Part of me doesn't know. Like, I don't know exactly why someone would, why we have that behavior. What I have an assumption though. My assumption is that people, you make purchases emotionally, right? very, very few times you actually make this purchasing decision,
Mhm.
especially with money that's just like for fun,
Yeah.
right? You don't do that logically. So to me, I think if someone's not buying something, even though they have the money for it, and even though it might seem like an appealing product, it's because they don't have an emotional connection to it. Either the person who's selling it or the actual product itself. And that's where storytelling comes in. I think it's up to the service provider or the author or the creator to create an emotional connection and tell a story around that. Like, how do you tell a story to create that emotional connection? Storytelling is vital. That's why people tell you. That's why not people tell you, but that's why I think some people are more successful, because they're able to tell stories around their products or around their services or around themselves or around their books or around their creativity that appeals emotionally to people. And they're able to do that better than the other person is doing it.
Like in terms of like when I'm looking at a book,
Mhm.
I want to make that purchase.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
again, you talked on the point of like storytelling. I want to know like, so book cover is also a storytelling part. Like,
oh, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. The book telling is a storytelling part. The back cover is a storytelling part. I actually tested this and asked people when I was selling at a booth.
uh-huh.
And I just asked people, like, what made you stop here and buy my books instead of all these other books? And they said, oh, I like your book cover. You know what I mean? Like that. That's it. I like the title of your book. Another storytelling thing. I like and then when I flipped over, I read the back. That appealed to me. So I bought it. People are very simple. You know, like in many ways, we're very simple. It's just like, they're visual first, emotional, and then they'll buy something that they feel like is gonna benefit their life in some way.
And in terms of writing, what have you seen? How the money flows in this creative world? Is that ghostwriting or speaking gigs or what that is, or how many sources or flows are there?
A few. It's the 1% of the 1% of authors who are able to just write books and nothing else. That is rare, like super, super, super rare. So most writers, and I'm gonna assume most creative people have to do multiple things in order to have creative commitment for themselves. For writing, ghostwriting. I wish more people understood about ghostwriting, or maybe I don't, because it's less competition for me.
Yeah.
But no, seriously, I wish more people knew about and understood ghostwriting, because ghostwriting is something that can bring in sizable amounts of revenue for an author. You know, ghostwriting is something where it's a premium offering. You are writing a book for someone else. You could charge tens of thousands of dollars for that on the low end, and on the mid to high end, you're charging hundreds of thousands of dollars for one book. So it's a premium offering. It takes months to accomplish, right? But the payoff is worth it, because you could do a few a year and be financially secure. Services, editing, something called book coaching. There are a few other services that you can offer. Writers tend to teach.
Mhm.
So I teach once a week at a college, right? So there are multiple forms that, again, you have to look at your author career or your creative career as a startup. You know what I mean? As a not just a business, but as an actual career, right? You're creating something for yourself. You're not just offering one service. You're not just writing books. You're creating a career for yourself. So if you're creating a career for yourself, what does that career look like? How are you going to make sure that you're adapting? How are you evolving? Where are you finding new clients? You have to think about all of these things. It's not enough right now to just be like, oh, I'm going to write books and put it out and see what happens. You know, that's not a career for again, pretty much everyone except the 1% of the 1%. And it's great if it happens, it happens. You know, if you are at that 1% of the 1%, that's incredible. But for everybody else, you really have to think I don't want to say entrepreneur. I'm hesitant to say that, but you do have to think like an entrepreneur. You have to think like a career person,
Mhm.
you know, rather than thinking that you're doing this ultra creative thing, and this one ultra creative thing is going to bring me enough income to sustain my lifestyle.
What sells more reliably? Is that a $20 book or a $2,000 service?
A $2,000 service, absolutely. it's just been way, way easier to sell a service for me than it has been to sell books. I'll be honest. And that's because with services, you're helping somebody else. People are inherently selfish. They want to be able to do things to better their own life, better their own business. So if you're coming in and being like, hey, I will help you do this and this thing will better your business, they'll take it even if it costs 10 times as much as your book. If I come to you and I say, hey, buy this book, they'll be like, why? Especially I'm writing fiction. Why am I buying your book? What value is it going to give me? What am I going to learn? No, even though fiction teaches you so many things, right? I think they see that more as a bother than it would be, hey, I could do something for your business. So for sure, services, absolutely.
Yeah, and you also mentioned about ghostwriting. I think that was the most important or more likable thing or most likable thing for you. I think so. Like based on the fact that how you said it, was that true or is that true?
Yeah, I love ghostwriting. Definitely. Other than writing my own novels, ghostwriting for me is because it's the closest thing to writing to book writing. It is book writing. I'm still writing books. I'm just not writing books for myself, but I'm still thinking about how to creatively execute a novel or most likely a nonfiction book. I'm still thinking about how to creatively execute it. I'm still writing the words, putting the words together, or collaborating with someone to help them put the words together. So for me, it's so fulfilling. It's still, and I get to learn about all these new things and, all these interests that I never thought I would have. And it's fun. And you meet people who you end up, having some kind of a relationship with in some way. So it's ghostwriting for me is, in addition to being lucrative, it's also very fulfilling.
Is it easy to find those clients?
No, you have to be able to find people who can afford it. That's the trickiest part. So you have to, even within ghostwriting, you have to be able to understand how to break down a client, assess a client, how to have tiers of services, because like I said, low end to write a book is about $25,000 to $35,000. Not everyone's going to be able to pay $25,000 to $35,000 within a 6-month time frame. Within that, how can you offer services that kind of get them to that point? So there are other tiers of services you can offer. Book coaching, which is a little less involved. You're not fully writing the book. Something called book doctoring, which is another level below that. Then there is, you could just offer editing, which is not ghostwriting at all. So now you're stepping out of that. But then within ghostwriting, you can also do something called proposal writing, which is a whole other conversation. So you're giving them, like, to write a proposal is maybe $10,000. That's much more affordable. To do book doctoring is maybe about $20,000. To do book coaching, different price. So instead of just being like, well, pay me $35,000 to write the book, how about I collaborate with you a little bit more offhand, guide you through the process, and I'll do that for $15,000, right? So again, you have to know how to understand that, how to break a client down, see what they need, and then at the same time be very confident with your offering, but give them options so that it's not like one or done. There's no like one no. They say no to this. Well, what about these other offers?
So can you tell me one example where you find the client and how do you find that client and you converted that? I specifically want to know like how to look for the clients if someone wants to look.
Best way to get a client in the ghostwriting game is referrals. So either you connect with literary agencies, and the literary agencies sign authors, obviously, right? So literary agency will sign an author. They don't always sign authors who know how to write. They might sign an influencer. So they need someone to ghostwrite the book. So if you are on the like, let's say, list of that literary agency, then they'll reach out to you and be like, hey, we just got a client. This client is an influencer. They have 20 million followers. They don't have time to write the book. Can you write the book? We'll pay you whatever you want to get paid, right? That's the best way to get referrals. I've gotten referrals from other ghostwriting agencies, right? So sometimes a ghostwriting agency or ghostwriter themselves will have, like this happened recently where a ghostwriter had a client that didn't fit them. So they messaged me, they said, hey, I have a client for you, like I'm going to intro you. Would you be interested in it? I said, yes. They connected us. I just wrote the book. This happened last year. This book is coming out this winter, right? The cold email way it works, but it takes a lot more time. It's a much longer process. You have to first kind of scroll, let's say LinkedIn, you're scrolling through LinkedIn, you're looking for, first of all, high net worth individuals, or individuals who you think have an interesting story to tell. You have to come up with a messaging that you think is going to speak to them specifically. So you can't even template messaging. You can template portions of it, but you can't template the full message because you have to speak personally. You have to say that post you wrote on blah, 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 blah was really intriguing. I think that that could be the basis of a story about, et cetera, et cetera. I'm a ghostwriter. I'm an author. Here are my qualifications. Would you be interested? You know what I'm saying? So, and then you have to do 25 of those, 50 of those, 100 of those a week. And then gauge your conversions and see what's working, what's not working, and then get on the phone and then again, see what's working and not working. So it's the cold way is a longer process. What's more efficient is actually networking with literary agents, other ghostwriters, and then hybrid publishers, because hybrid publishers, they tend to take on clients who are either influencers or in the business world, and they need ghostwriters. So if you connect with them, they'll give you a shout.
You have done the cold outreach
Yes,
a lot of times.
I've done a lot of cold outreach for sure, but my success, I've always had more success from referrals than cold outreach. To be honest, like cold outreach, it does work. I book clients like that, but I get more clients and more solid clients from referrals.
Well, reaching out to the referral level, you would need to have certain kind of a portfolio, or someone needs to give you a referral just because they have seen your work, right?
Yeah.
So first step is either doing that connection. How are you going to build that connection to the first person who is giving your referral to someone else, right?
Yes, that's the tricky part. You have to get one booking, but not necessarily. You have to prove that you can write. And you have to prove that you're trustworthy enough to deliver. So you might not have written a book, but you have written essays. You've written long form content. You've written a short story. That you have to have some evidence of writing, period. If you could prove that, be like, hey, I've written this, and then get the person to trust you through networking, through however, then you could get that first client, or go through, or someone else. I was just speaking to another ghostwriter. He got his first client through a friend, because the trust is there, which is in ghostwriting. That's the most important part. Like once you figure out who you're talking to, these people actually don't care about the money. The cost of it is not important for them. The important is, can I trust this person, and are they going to deliver? Are they going to make me look good? That's what they're worried about more than anything. So typically once you get them on the phone, it's more so a matter of emotional connection than it is, and trust that it is, can they afford it? Most people, after the point that they return, they get back to you, they can afford it.
Now, for so many years, have you decided, or have you come across any kind of framework, or you have made some kind of framework on your own? You think that if you can be replaced, someone else will be placed in your place, and the framework remains the same, maybe the same level of success, or maybe more level of success can be achieved. Is there any kind of like framework or the steps that you think, like, if first I'm going to start from someone who's starting, and we may then talk about like someone who's experienced.
Got you. I'll talk about it from a couple of different perspectives. The first thing I would say is, if it's not a framework, the first part is actually networking. That's important. You have to be part of the industry, because you have to be knowledgeable. If you're not in the writing industry, especially if you're not in the ghostwriting industry, you don't know about it. You don't understand the process of it, how it works. So if you're coming out fresh as a ghostwriter and you want to get into it, you have to understand how it works. You're only going to understand how it works through networking with other ghostwriters and getting that knowledge base up. That's step one. You have to, because if your client or potential client is asking questions and you don't know the answer, trust is gone. You're not getting that client. You have to be able to answer every single question and answer it confidently. So the first step is not a framework; it's networking. Now, the framework for outreach is the framework for outreach for anything. It would be create an email template, or create a message template. Leave space for personalization in the message template. Highlight this is for beginners. Highlight the things that you are good at. Highlight the things that make you look make you look capable in the eyes of the client. For me, when I started out, I had the advantage because I already written books. So I said, hey, I've written this book. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's not I didn't ghostwrite the book, but I've written this book myself. Now that's become my major advantage because I can say I've self-published books. I've written books for independent publishers. I've written books for the top publishers in the world. So that automatically gives them trust, right? You might not have that level of trust, but you have to find things that highlight, uh, who you are and the connections to that person. So for instance, maybe the connection is that as you're putting together your template, right? You have the standard piece of the template, but you leave part for tactical connections, meaning I went to the same university as you, right? I just got a client just because of that, or I haven't secured them yet, but I got a conversation with the client because of that. Oh, we went to the same university, not even at the same time. Like he went 20, 30 years before I went, but that's the connection point. Like, oh, I went to the same university as you, blah, 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 blah. Let's have a conversation. You highlight that. I just, pitch myself to somebody else and it's like, oh, I'm a middle child as well. You know what I'm saying? Like that's a connection point. I'm a middle child as well. I understand what you're trying to say in your life, blah, 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 blah. So have your verbiage that is part of the framework. But the important thing that anyone can do is it's taking the extra time, because it does take a lot of time, taking the extra time to find what connects you to the potential client, highlighting that connection point, because that connection point builds trust. And all you're trying to do is get them to respond to an email or a message. And once you get them to respond, then it's up to you to convert. Then it's up to you to get them on the phone or get them on a video call and really convert. And that's a different conversation.
You mentioned about networking. Maybe it's a lot of learning that I have to do, but for specifically like business related community, I went to like a lot of networking events. Pretty much everyone is there seeking money. So I'm seeking money, another person is seeking money. So I'm not seeing, I've been to like hundreds of events. Maybe I did not meet the right people. Maybe my approach was wrong. Pretty much like, hi, I have this company. Oh, I have this company. Like, so.
No. I think you have to be very specific about where you're going, like who you're networking with. So when I say network as a beginner, let's start with the beginner. You're networking with other literary agents, right? Literary agents have the key to, like what I explained before. They sign authors and they could give you clients. You're networking with other ghostwriters, and maybe in the business world that's different. And with ghostwriting very specifically, ghostwriters give you clients. You can only write so many books in a year, right? So you have to turn down it. The bigger you are as a ghostwriter, the more clients you need to turn down. So they say no a lot. So they're saying no, but they could pass them on to you. Now you've made that connection. It's essential. So I think in a business sense, if I need investors, I'm not going to go to a business networking thing. That's not going to help me. If I need investors, I'm going to go to a philanthropic event where there are donors, and I'm going to try to buy the ticket because those tickets are expensive. I'm going to buy the ticket and I'm going to go to that event because I know there will be high net worth people there, and I'm going to talk to them about it, my whatever I need them to invest in. That's the approach I would take for that. You have to go to where you're going to get what you want from the people that you need to get it from. Not like, I would never just go to a random networking event. You got to be careful with that, because then you're going to waste your time, right?
Yeah. And if you're trying to get yourself out there, would you choose like writing maybe specifically 6 hours of content? If I just want to put a figure there, 6 hours of content or 6 hours of outreach, what would you do? If you just have like 6 hours.
About 6 hours like in a week or something?
Yeah. Not maybe 6, 10.
Yeah, whatever the number.
Yeah,
I get what you're saying. I would spend more time on outreach. And some time on creating content for sure, because again, you want to show that you can do this, but the outreach is more important, because the outreach is going to take is you need to do it more in bulk than you need to do the content. So you need to do more outreach than you need to do content. So I would focus more on the outreach if you're trying to get clients. There are some people who do almost zero social media, zero content creation, almost zero content creation, and make a lot of money, because again, the ghostwriters who I went to New York recently and I met a whole bunch of new ghostwriters I've never met before. None of them that's not true. very few of them have a significant social media following. No one has heard of these people. You know what I mean? But their networking is supreme. It's supreme. So they're already in with the literary agencies. They're already in with the hybrid publishers. They're already in with other ghostwriting agencies. So why would they need social media? What does it matter? Once they've ghostwritten one book, they give you like, here's my one book. Let's go. Here's another book. Here's another book. Here's another book. I don't need social media. What does that prove? I don't need followers. What does that prove? You want to know if I can write a book. That's what you care about. Here's the proof I can write a book. You got me through referral, so you trust me already. You know I'm good. Let's go. That takes nothing. So I would, if you're trying to get clients, focus on outreach. You know what I'm saying? Again, that said though, because this is I don't want to negate or downplay the importance of actual content. There's a space for that as well. There's a world where if you are creating content, if you're creating content to get clients, create it very specifically to get clients. So show off what you want from the client. So if you are a graphic designer, make sure you're putting out content that shows off your graphic design. Like don't write too much stuff. Design and show people. Go to Adidas and be like, or take an Adidas logo and be like, look how I redid the Adidas logo. You know what I'm saying? Like design, show them what you could do. So the content reflects what kind of client you're trying to get. And if you're able to build community around or gain attention around or build an audience around the content that you're creating specifically for clients, then clients will come to you.
And what's happening with the upcoming trend of AI, or it's already here? It's just growing. So what's happening with that world, like in terms of specifically writing?
Right?
Yeah.
I mean, a lot and not that much. And at the same time, I think for authors, the writing community has been very adamant about no AI within our community. So book publishers are not open to any author writing using AI to write. It's like literally not allowed.
Can they catch it?
I mean, in certain instances, yeah, they can catch it. And if they detect it, they'll just pull your book and you don't want to take that chance. An author or two authors just they won a prize and then they found out that they used AI for their book covers, not even their writing, their book covers. And they suspended them. They took them out. They took their books out, right? But the writing world has made it super clear. Like we do not want AI in the creative process, period. So from an author creative perspective, it's clear. We know where we stand. From maybe in ghostwriting and services, AI can be used as like an organizational tool or research tool, but you still have to be careful. Yeah, I think those two things are how ghostwriters are using AI. And like something like transcribing, instead of paying someone, and not even the pay, it's a time to transcribe. You can literally transcribe a full, because you're interviewing a lot when you ghostwrite. So you could just get those transcriptions done in a couple of minutes, right? So you do that. So that's AI doing that, but that's not creative in any way. That's just a transfer of information. So in those instances, I think people are much more, writers specifically, are much more open to it and are okay with it. But in any creative instance, writers have pretty much en masse rejected it.
And that's for my knowledge. Like you have specifically mentioned like a couple of times, you can only write certain amount of books. Yeah. And you have also mentioned you need to do a lot of interviews with the person for which you're writing the book. So I want to know that number. Like how does that look like? Like 2 books in a year, 3, 5, 10, 20, I don't know.
So I'm going through it now. So I'm writing, I have 3 books. As of today, I have 3 books that are going to come out in the next 18 months. But they're all at different stages. You know what I mean? One book is, I have a first draft that my editors worked on it. So I'll be able to, those are just edits. Like edits to be extensive, especially after first draft. But the book is done as far as like what the main story is. So that's one thing. I have a book that I haven't started yet. And I have a book that I have like 1 chapter done. You know what I mean? So I could, for me, and I feel like that's my max. I feel maxed out. I can't write more than 3 books in a year for myself. Just thinking about it. For ghostwriting, I think it gets tough after 3 or 4. I think trying to manage 3 or 4 in a year becomes a little bit complicated because of the demands of the interviews and the deadlines of turning in chapters. I think it gets complicated after 3 or 4. But that said, again, if there are ways to go around it. Now, if you're so inundated with clients. Like you're getting clients all over the place. You have a choice to make. Do I just want to write these books myself, or like some of my friends have done, or colleagues have done? Do I want to do an agency model? So now I'll get other writers in here. I'll be the guide for everyone's writer, but now you're working with a team. You know, and now you could take on, you're not getting, maybe you get $50,000. Like the budget for the book is 50 grand. You as an individual is not, you're not taking 50 grand anymore because you're going to pay the writer, but you'll take 15% of that, pay the author, whatever, or the ghostwriter, whatever they need to get paid. And then now you have a different kind of business model. Or you just, if you write 3 or 4 books in a year and you're charging, if you're doing that many, that means you're at a different level of being a ghostwriter. You're charging at least 50,000 a book, probably more. You're probably closer to 75 to 100,000 a book. I think you're doing 3 or 4 a year. You're doing fine. So,
And you're doing like one block at a time, like one book and then the second one, or you're doing that parallelly? Because I want to understand like what goes into the mind. Because if you're writing about like someone personally, you have to like involve yourself so deep.
yeah.
So that's the understanding that I want to have. Like how that
It's hard to do it at the same time, but I've done that before. But it gets a little tricky. But no, the thing is that it's harder actually to write your own books at the same time, at least for me, because now because I have a certain style of writing now, a certain voice of writing, it starts meshing. It starts like mingling. You know what I'm saying? Blending into to each other. Each story starts blending in with each other. That gets complicated. When you're ghostwriting, because there's a separation, like it's not my book, it's your book, and I'm just helping you. Yes, you're deep into it, but your mind, or at least my mind, works a little bit distant from it. So I can have the conversation with that person, be interviewing that person, then go write that person, but then be like, all right, that's done. The next day, let me flip into to another book, and I could be just as engaged with it, just as deep in it. So ghostwriting, I think, is easier to kind of compartmentalize, or easier because even if I'm doing it at the same time. But writing my own books, I find that extremely difficult. Like that is tough to do. Write more than one book at the same time. That's hard.
and what makes the money faster?
Ghostwriting, not even close. Not even close. Royalty. You get paid as an author from a publisher. Like if you're signed, you get paid twice a year. That's it. And first you have to recoup the money that they advance to you. So if your advance was $20,000, you have to make back that $20,000 against your royalty rate, not $20,000 in sales, because that's fairly simple for your side to a big publisher. But if you have a 15% royalty rate, you have to make that $20,000 on that against that royalty rate. That could take a lot of books, right? And a lot of time. So it could take a year, 2 years before you see any money past the advance money. You know, I've had both instances. I've had my first published novel not earn out all the way, and so I didn't see anything past or very little, or nothing. I don't even remember. Let's just say nothing past the first royalty check, past the first advance. My books now with Penguin and Scholastic, that's a different case. Like I've sold more. So I've seen royalty checks. You know what I'm saying? So that's a little bit different. But even still, like I said, they come twice a year. They come in, let's say March and October. That's when I get paid. So it's with ghostwriting, you get paid up front. And then you control the deliverables. You can say, if it's a $50,000 contract, I need half up front, 25,000. Then we could go a half on delivery of the final product. You could say, all right, I want 15,000 up front. And then we pay month to month. You pay 5,000 a month for 6 months, or 4 or 5 months, whatever the math is. So you control the money. So, but in 6 months, you have all your money. You know what I'm saying? Like, you have all of your money, and plus you got money up front. So ghostwriting by far.
What does it take to become a best-selling author? Is that a scam? Because I've heard a lot of stories like
It depends what you mean by best-selling. If you mean by best-selling by the actual number of books, that's different. That's not a New York Times bestseller is not necessarily someone who has sold the most books. They're different. You know, there are different kind of elements that they included to that. Selling books matters. That's your goal. If you can sell a lot of books, you can sell a lot of books. It doesn't matter if you're a bestseller or not. It matters about your royalty rate. That's all that matters. If you're self-published and you sell 5,000 books at $20, I mean, you're making 100 grand, right? Is that the math? 20 times 5, blah, blah, blah. You're just making about five, whatever the number is, right?
Yeah.
5,000 books at $20 a book.
Yeah.
You're making $100,000 or something like that. You're making a lot of money. Now, if you sold 5,000 books at $20, but you're traditionally published and you're making a 15% royalty rate, I don't even know what that number is. Like, you're not making any money. I actually do this with when I go into schools, I talk about this with students. I use $1 million because it's easy math. I say, I sell $1 million worth of books and I'm traditionally published. My royalty rate is 15%. So I make $150,000 off of that million, right? Me as the author. I'm in Canada, so I have to pay taxes. You're going to get taxed about 40% at that rate. So now my $150,000, let's say 75 for good math, it's about $75,000. And then I have to pay my agent fee, So out of that $1 million that the company made, of the books that I sold, that my book sold 1 million copies, I make $150,000 less tax, less my agent fee. So I'm making less than $100,000 off of $1 million worth of sales. You see what I mean? Now, if I make $1 million worth of sales and I'm self-published and I'm making 70% of my royalties, I'm making 700,000 minus the tax rate. Let's just say, so now I'm at 350,000, right? And I have no agent. So would you rather make 350,000 or would you rather make below 100? Like, it's such a huge difference. You know what I mean?
But the effort is also different.
The effort, not much. The effort is different. I think people miscalculate how much effort they have to put in, even if they have a publisher. I've seen it all now. I could say this confidently. Indie publisher, Penguin, Scholastic, you have to put in a lot of effort to sell books. The only caveat I'll add is with Scholastic, because Scholastic's in schools. So you're not, there's no effort there. Like, they're already in every school, right? Like, every child gets to see that Scholastic and they just choose your book. Scholastic's the only case out of all publishers in the world that's different because of their being an actual school. But for the most part, like with Penguin, I have to put in a lot of marketing effort. And this is with a great team. Like, Penguin's team, like their team, have been incredible. Like, they treat me like if I'm a superstar, you know, like they don't treat me like if I'm an emerging author or like a second tier author. They treat me like a star. Even with treating me like a star, I still have to put in a lot of effort if I want to sell books. I still have to be setting up, book signings at Indigo stores or bookstores. I still have to do content marketing online. I still have to do, find different organizations I want to sell my book to. I still have to, like, I'm still doing all of that. But the less effort comes in maybe like they first of all, the book industry is still very physical. So they're able to put your books into stores, like physically into bookstores. You know what I'm saying? And when I say the book industry is still very physical, I mean by like 4 or 5 to 1. Like, their physical books still outsell digital books, audiobooks. Like, they outsell those by a far like a super wide margin. So it's still a very physical industry. So the advantage of having a publisher is that they could physically put your book in pretty much every store in your region. You know what I mean? So that they do a great job with that. They do a great job with getting you into festivals. They do a great job for getting your books nominated for awards, because some awards only take published books. Most awards only take published books. So there's a huge advantage for sure. But that doesn't mean that you don't have to work. Like, none of that is guaranteed. Most books still don't sell anything. Most books still don't sell well, despite these advantages. You still have to work and create, like we spoke about earlier, like create the emotional connection with readers and your audience, so they actually buy the book when they see it pop up.
So it's kind of like they will give you additional access to the places where you cannot be alone. Like, for example, like getting into the schools is going to be hard for you, or kind of impossible for a single person to get in, because if they're approving you, they would have other people will be applying for the same thing, right? So then they would have to set up the manpower and resources to set it up. So publishers can get you the access. But you're saying like it's almost same, so it doesn't matter the route that you choose. you have to do the same amount of work.
Almost the same amount of
So,
work.
yeah.
Yeah, like and the other little things too that are not so little. Like you don't have to find your own editor. You have to use your own money. So that's huge, right? Like that part is really huge. You don't have to use your own money to get a book cover done, to edit your book, to distribute your book. Like I get that the money part of it is also a thing. And they pay you for your manuscript, right? But advances are like, that's another conversation, but they pay you for your manuscript. So the money part is there. But beyond that, it's anything marketing and promotional wise, like you should still be super active. There's no guarantee.
So if someone has like 1,000 followers or maybe 500 or maybe 200, has $0 in sales or haven't started, let's put it that way, they have just 1 to 2 hours a week. Are they going to make out? And if yes, how they should approach? And just have 2 hours in a day or in a week?
If I had 2 hours in a week and I had no social media following, I would think about the themes of my book, look through like, what is my book about? And I would reach out to organizations who align with those themes. And I pitch my book to those organizations because organizations would buy your book in bulk. So if your book talks about therapy, let's just say, then I'll reach out to all the therapists in Toronto, then all the therapists in Ontario, then all the therapists in Canada, then all the therapists in North America, and say, hey, like my book speaks to this. You could use my book for therapy. Do you want to buy 10 copies? And I would go like that because it's an outreach conversation. Like, what are you trying to get to? If you're trying to get to book sales, go talk to the people who are going to buy your book. Why are you going to waste time over here? Not waste time, but again, you're for the very specific, if you have limited time, why are you going to spend it over here when you could spend it over here actually speaking to the people who are going to buy your book? Forget about creating content or doing anything else. You have limited time, right? And you have no following. So no one's seeing that. And social media takes months and months to build up. So sure, you could spend some time over here so you're not on zero. So if someone wants to search you up, they see that you're a real person. But besides that, I would spend 95% of my time researching organizations who align with the themes of my novel or my book, and I'll be trying to pitch them.
And what should be the other approach? Like first is going to be like polish your skills, get something out there so that you can do the outreach, right? For the outreach, you need to send them something as a part of your portfolio. Like this is what I can write or do. So what else? What other things can be done? Or that's pretty much.
If you want to sell books.
Yeah. And you have a limited amount of time, like, and
then the other avenue is social media. You know what I'm saying? And hold on. Yes, social media for sure. But then the other avenue is find where your audience is, right? So besides connecting with organizations who are aligned with the themes of your book, find where your audience is. If your book is about it involves mothers or family dynamics, like where are your readers at? Where are readers who are going to be engaged with that type of content? Like, so, and put yourselves into those situations, join clubs, go out to these places in person, go out to podcasts, right? So find where your audience is. And then because you don't have your own platform, go onto the platforms where people are speaking to those audiences or those audiences are living or already having conversations and join those conversations. It doesn't only have to be social media. People forget that like book selling has been around for a long time. People have been selling millions and millions of books way before social media. Social media is a 15-year-old thing, 20-year-old thing, right? Facebook came out in 2003, right? So it's a very new thing to our world. Novels have been out for 400 years. So 300 years, right? Like in its current form anyway. And book writing has been around for thousands of years, right? So people have been selling books minus social media. They just know where their audience is at. And then they go interject into that audience, be it in real life or be it now you can use online. So I would, it's always about identifying your audience.
But you initially said like you don't want to use the word entrepreneur, but
I know
you're like all being that.
I know these are all entrepreneurial pillars and principles. I know. I'm just because you know what? It scares writers. It scares creative people when I say that. They're like, "Oh, I don't want to be an entrepreneur." So I always try to think of different ways to say it. But it is you're an entrepreneur, man. That's the simple way to say it. Yeah.
What's the one thing that someone should stop doing immediately? Like if they want to like take off. Something
paying for PR. I think it's very difficult to sell a book off of a promotion. You know what I mean? Like a Facebook or an Instagram ad or something. I think it's very difficult to sell a book like that. People even in today's digital era, the number one way people still buy books is off of recommendations. That's why book clubs are so popular. Is because somebody said, "Oh, I read this book. You should read this book as well." That's what book talk is all about. You know, like I read this book, you go read this book. Recommendations are still the number one way. Even off of social media, offline, it is still very rare that someone walks into a bookstore like an Indigo or a local bookstore and has no idea what book they're looking for and then finds a book and they'll like it. Like it's so rare for that to happen. Either they're gonna come speak to someone in the store and say, "Hey, I'm looking for a book about this, blah 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 blah. Can you show me something?" Or they're already coming into the bookstore with an idea of the book that they want to buy. They might browse around a little bit and be like, "Oh, I know this author, blah blah blah." But it's recommendations. You know what I'm saying? It's referral. So I would, if you're thinking about paying for ads, I would stop doing that and not get into that at all. And I would also really think about the type of PR you pay for. It's still important. You can pay for PR, but have a very detailed conversation with the PR agency and let them know who you are, what your audience is, what your goals are, and then have them, when they pitch a plan, make sure that plan is in alignment with all of that, because it could be a huge waste of money if you are paying PR for PR and they're putting you into places where your audience doesn't care about your book or the themes of your book.
Mhm. So there's a whole lot of like, I would say, art in doing that creative process. But from a business point of view, like, would you rely on your creative process first, or would you look at what the market is looking for, is asking?
Before I write a book?
Yeah.
Ooh, that, when I'm writing, I'm just writing. I have to separate it from me. I'm a,
Then you're gonna try to force sell it, like
no, like, so there's, I have to ask that question in different ways.
sure.
If you're writing fiction, write whatever you want. Write what's in your heart. I write mostly fiction. So I'm just writing what's in my heart. I love this story, this fantastical story, this magical realism story, whatever. I'm going to write what's in my heart and then figure out how to market it after. Now, if you are a business person, right? Like, so you're not like a tradition, like an actual author, like you want to write a book for a business purpose, then then you should think about what the market is saying. Think about how you're going to, most importantly, think about how you're going to position your book in the market, because the positioning of your book, the position of you as an individual and a thought leader writing the book is what's going to sell the book more so than the actual book itself. The book could be basic, to be completely honest with you, but if you position it well and say, I'm solving this problem, I'm solving this need, then you're going to win and you're going to sell a whole lot of books and you're going to get a whole lot of speaking gigs and you're going to, up your thought leadership and all that stuff, up your value. So if I'm a business person, I'm thinking about the market first. If I'm just an author writing fiction, writing novels, then I'm going to separate those two processes. I'm going to write the book and then I'm going to think about marketing afterward.
What's the one thing that creators or writers should remember about getting paid? Like, what's the one thing that they should keep in mind? Ask for the money first, or what?
As an author, one thing that they should remember is that this is a long game. So mentally prepare for the long game. Make decisions not always based or not only based on what's happening now in your life and what's important now in your life. Make those decisions based on the next 5 years. Seriously, books have a very long tail. Books last almost pretty much forever. So you might write a book now. My first book took 6 years to write. You know what I'm saying? Put out in 2014. Before I came here, I just gave a box to someone who just bought 65 copies of a book that I put out 10 years ago. Right? So you're playing a long game here. So I would tell them that any author, just like I would think from that perspective, for services, ghostwriting, editing and stuff like that, I would say now I wouldn't be shy about thinking like a pure business person. You are a business. So what pain point are you trying to solve? Who are you speaking to specifically? And the more niche is almost the better, who are you speaking to specifically? Where are those potential clients? How can I get to them? You know what I'm saying? That's what I'll be saying. Like, how can I go find where my clients are at?
Mm-hmm.
That's it. And then how can I attract clients to myself? You know, those two questions, where are they at and how can I attract them to me? That's what I will be thinking about all the time. I wouldn't spend time on anything else, because where are my clients at and how can I attract them to me should determine your entire content strategy and your business strategy. And as a services person.
Car. This was awesome, Khan. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
Oh, this was amazing. Thank you.
Thank you.